Hello, everybody. My name is Bob, and we're playing from the depths. Now, I want to introduce you to a new airship I made that maybe probably will enter the campaign at some point. But first, I want to talk about points of failure and redundancy. I originally started building an airship I'll bring it in and show you. I originally built an airship that uses these custom jet engines, and custom jet engines are great. They are very powerful. Here's the problem, though. There's a total of 6 engines keeping this thing up. So if this engine gets hit in the face with a cram and it actually takes out a segment of the custom jet engine, this thing is going to fall out of the sky. Could do lots more custom jet engines, but then that's redundancy, additional power that I probably don't need. I could bury it inside the hull, but there's also a lot of other stuff that needs to be buried inside the hull too, like the ammo clips and the CPU. I just tack these custom jet engines on the side, and what would happen is I take a cram right here, kaboom, that goes out, and the whole thing falls from the sky. It doesn't have any redundancy. If that fails, if this jet engine fails, the whole thing fails. Now, with some things like let me with some things like this fighter, that's just the nature of the business. If it gets hit, it and penetrates this fuselage here, it's going to be taken out. That's just nature of the business. Now, it may repair itself. It may be sitting in the water doing repair bots and stuff. But it's not going to be in the action, except for, if the missiles still work and the CPU still works, it could still be firing missiles at the enemy, but it's not going to be moving, and so it's going to be a bit of a second sitting duck. So, single points of failure for something like this is kind of par for the course. But also, this thing only costs like $20,000 or 20,000 materials, so it doesn't matter that much. For something like this, it costs 500,000 materials. That's a bit of a problem. That's not something you want. You want to have the possibility for it to get severely hit and still keep going. It also only has the one gun. Now, the one gun is buried way deep the fuck in here. It's going to be hard for them to burrow into the far enough into it to actually hit the ammo clips, but it only has the one gun. So if the one gun is taken out, basically it has very little offensive capability aside from these missiles. So you want to avoid, especially the more expensive things are, the more you want to avoid having one thing that can take out the whole caboodle. And this, unfortunately, is something that was a failed design, because one hit right here with a big old cram shell was going to take it out, and it would fall from the sky. Okay, here's the Wombat, which I still have some testing to do on it. I still want to test it up a bit. From what I'm seeing so far, this has a good chance of making it into the campaign. And as you see, there is no custom jet engines. What there are is a lot of regular jet engines, like a whole bunch. So if one of these gets taken out, it's really not going to affect it too much. It's possible that there's a relatively limited number of roll thrusters. Like these 3 are roll thrusters. That one's a roll thruster, and the one on the opposite side is a roll thruster. So it's possible if those got taken out, it could affect its ability to stay upright. But on the whole, it's fairly redundant. Also, I just tacked these on here because I needed more side strapping capability. But even if these get taken out, I got these things buried underneath heavy armor. So and I don't actually need these things. These are for performance enhancement rather than performance necessity. It doesn't need these to steer or strafe. I can do either of those things with the ones that are behind the heavy armor. It has 4 guns, not just one. They're only like 250 millimeters with HE shells. Relatively high rate of fire, 165.6 rounds per minute, and a relatively low impact per shell, but but it's going to chew through stuff. So let's go ahead and bring in something. I got these missiles. Let me take a look at these missiles right quick. The thing about these missiles is, if you're going to be fighting more competent enemies, there's no point in having missiles at all unless they're going to be missiles that will survive their anti-missile efforts. So you see, we've got the three reinforced bodies here. That's just totally for upping the health of the missile, so it's more likely to penetrate their missile defenses. It'll take longer for the enemy to kill each individual missile, and they are 3,000 thrust output, so they're going to get there pretty quick. So it's going to take quite a very capable missile defense to actually cancel out all these missiles. It doesn't have a huge payload; it just has two explosive and one frag. But it's much more likely to get there, and that's what you want if you're going to be facing more capable enemies. Also, there are a lot of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 26 altogether in each salvo, and that's a lot. I don't usually go with laser missile defense. I just go with these things on a CWIS controller, and they seem to do between these and the distraction sticks. They seem to do pretty well. The distraction sticks I use because they seem to work really well, but it's at a cost. In other words, it's not really going to work all that well unless you have all the. Let me go up here. Pardon for anyone who gets dizzy. We got chaff dispensers. We got a heat decoy and a radar decoy, and they're really only going to work optimally if they're set all the way up. So the chaff dispensers to maximum material use, and the heat and radar decoys also to maximum energy use. So let's stop getting dizzy. But as long as you have a ACB set up, turn the power on these off and on. It's no worries. So they'll only be on at that maximum level when there's a missile approaching. Which reminds me, actually, I haven't done the ACBs to turn those off. I did the ACBs to turn off the electric engines, but not actually to turn off or turn on and off the decoys. So I need to remember to do that. Again, in the back, there's lots of these regular jet engines. If one of them fails, it's not really going to be a big deal. And like I said, four guns. So if one of those is taken out, they're insulated from each other with armor. So the one taking out one isn't going to take out the rest of them. There's not going to be a chain reaction. And in order to get to if it's someone's attacking it from the front, which obviously is a frontal airship, so they would be, it's got to get all the way through all these cooling vents, and then through a wall of heavy armor slopes in order to get back to where the clips are. So now, if it manages to hit through the side, it's going to be a bit of a problem, but it's still got alloy, wood, and heavy armor slopes here. So not super protected, but pretty well. I mean, it's going to take a little bit of doing. The wood there is for a spall liner, which is basically just if I get hit by a heat round to neutralize that. Also, it's an airship, so I wouldn't have wanted to make these all out of heavy armor beam, because then it's much harder for me to actually get the thing off the ground. So a certain amount of compromises that are made with airships Um, so you're simply not going to be as well built up as you can be with a surface ship. Let's bring in something. It does have a tendency to roll a bit. And again, that missile salvo was pretty hardcore. And that barrage of APS is also pretty hardcore. It's going to start chewing through. Now, the really deadly thing about this thing are the crams, but this thing is maneuverable enough that it's unlikely to hit it with crams. Yeah, when it's doing the strafing, it has a tendency to roll over. As long as it doesn't fall out of the sky, I don't care. Got some nice block confetti going on. Missing some turrets. And incoming. I think that the roll thing actually also affects its altitude. So as long as it stays above the surface of the water, I'm actually kind of okay with it. And there it goes, and crab shells miss. I've tested it against let's, this is against Palisade, which has a very impressive missile loadout. It's managed to beat it. Tested it against the what was it? Harlech, which has pretty decent missile defense. What was I tested? Oh, I tested against the Alcazar, which has the ability to float even though it's all torn up. So the Alcazar is sort of my can I penetrate that much armor and airspaces, which I could. I beat it. I still have more testing I would like to do, but there's a pretty high rate of likelihood that I'm going to be bringing this into the campaign at some point. It's about 500,000. Let me see. Yeah, 588. So not quite twice as much as a platypus, but I probably will bring it in at some point. And that's all for right now. Until next time, hasta la vista. Adios!